Today we're discussing the latest political clash between Robert Jenrick, a conservative leadership candidate, and Rachel Reeves, the Labour Party's shadow chancellor. During a Sky News interview, Jenrick accused Reeves of being a compulsive liar, specifically criticizing her statements on Labour's budget plans and tax proposals. He claimed that she had been misleading the public for months, particularly regarding her announcement of tax hikes and the so-called black hole in public finances. Before we dive deeper, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now let's get into the details of this heated exchange.
Yesterday with this budget shows why we need a very strong Conservative opposition, and we need it now. No messing around. You want to have the strongest possible leader of the opposition in place to take the fight to Labour.
It's your flipping fault, though. Your fault that we were in so much debt.
Look, hang on. What we saw yesterday was a Halloween horror show. This was the biggest political heist in modern British history. £40 billion.
Since John Major.
£40 billion of tax rises hurting people across this country. And just 3 months ago, the Labour Party won election on a pledge not to raise taxes. I'm afraid Rachel Reeves, who you've just interviewed, is acting like a compulsive liar. She said during the general election she wasn't going to raise taxes. She just has. She said she wasn't going to increase debt. She just massively increased debt. And then after the election, she invented that there was a black hole. The public will not trust this Labour government. They're making it up to justify immense tax rises. They're going to hurt the economy, hurt people's working lives.
Are you comfortable calling her a liar?
Well, look at her record. She literally said during the general election that the tax bill was not going to rise for working people. It's just risen for working people. She said she wasn't going to change the fiscal rules and increase borrowing. It's just risen by £50 billion. And then immediately after the election, she invents a black hole. Today, not a single credible economist, not the OBR, no one will stand behind that claim. It's just simply invented to justify the political choices that she's making. A £10,000 pay rise for well-paid train drivers in order to take away the winter fuel allowance for 10,000 poorly paid pensioners. You know, these are political choices being made that are going to hurt people the length and breadth of this country and are not even going to drive the economy forward. If you look at what the Treasurer and the OBR said yesterday...
How can you be effective opposition when you couldn't even organise for the new leader to be in place to respond to this government's first budget?
Well, I argued that the new leader should have been, but I thought Rishi Sunak was very good yesterday, and in fact he made mincemeat out of Rachel Reeves. He exposed all of the lies that I've just set out. You know, he made very clear that she's been telling a pack of lies for months now, and no one's believing it. The public are furious about what's happening. Everyone from business people, international investors, family farmers, young people trying to get on the housing ladder, people who just want to leave their pension to their partner when they die. I mean, Labour are absolutely attacking everyone in our country, length and breadth of the country, all sectors of society, from the poorest to the richest.
What's your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. Reeves, in her first budget since Labour took power, revealed a £40 billion tax increase aimed at funding public services and the NHS.
What I'm saying is that last year, only a very small number of farms would have been paying any additional inheritance tax. I hope that Rebecca and her family will look through the details, because if the farm is owned by two people, you have £3 million essentially tax-free, and then the tax rate is a 50% discount on everyone else, and you would have 10 years to pay it. So only a very small number of agricultural properties will be affected. But last year, the benefits of agricultural property relief, 40% of the benefit was felt by 7% of the wealthiest landowners. I don't think that it is affordable to carry on with a relief like that when our public services are under so much pressure. And of course, farmers as well rely on good public services, whether that's our NHS, our roads or our schools. And that money will be put back into improving our public services and putting our public finances on a firm.
However, while she insisted that there would be no income tax hikes for working individuals, critics argue that the overall budget could have a detrimental impact on businesses and economic growth. Adding fuel to the fire, some within her own party have expressed concerns over the budget's potential harm to employment. Moreover, the claim of a £22 billion fiscal gap left by the previous government has been called into question, with some suggesting the real figure could be much lower. You need to watch this.
Not an option. We've already seen official ONS figures this month showing that borrowing is higher this year than the OBR expected. And the disaster of Liz Truss's mini-budget shows what happens if you don't take tough decisions to maintain economic stability. Some, including the leader of the opposition and the Shadow Chancellor, have claimed the books were open. How dare they? It is not true. And let me tell you why. There are very clear instances of specific budgets that were overspent and unfunded promises that were made, but that crucially the OBR was not aware of for their March forecast. I will now take each of these in turn. First, the asylum system. The forecast for the number of asylum seekers has risen dramatically since the last spending review, and costs for asylum support have risen sevenfold in the past 3 years. But instead of reflecting these costs in the Home Office budget for this year, the previous government covered up the true extent of this crisis and its spending implications. The document I am publishing today reveals a projected overspend on the asylum system, including their failed Rwanda plan, for this year alone of more than £6.4 billion. That was unfunded and it was undisclosed. Next, in the wake of the pandemic, demand for rail services fell. But instead of developing a proper plan to adjust for this new reality, the government handed out cash to rail companies to make up for passenger shortfalls, but failed to budget for this adequately. Because of that, and because of industrial action, there is now an overspend of £1.6 billion in the transport budget. Mr. Speaker, since 2022, the government, with the support of this whole House, has rightly provided military assistance to Ukraine in response to the Russian invasion. The spending audit has found that there was not enough money set aside for the reserve to fund all these costs. We will continue to honour these commitments in full. And unlike the previous government, we will make sure that they are always fully funded.
Call the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Chancellor for advance sight of her statement, and I echo her thoughts for the people and emergency services of Southport. Today, she will fool absolutely no one with a shameless attempt to lay the grounds for tax rises she didn't have the courage to tell us about.
Order.
She says, Mr. Speaker, the information is new. But she herself told the Financial Times, you don't need to win an election to find out the state of public finances, as we've got the OBR now. Paul Johnson of the IFS says the state of public finances were apparent pre-election to anyone who cared to look, which is why he and other independent figures say her argument is not credible and won't wash.
What you think I think Rachel is totally lying about the budget in the so-called fiscal gap. There's more to this than she's letting on. Do you agree? Make sure to like, support, and subscribe. For more information, stay tuned and take care. Goodbye.